Hi friends, today we'll discuss about communication. And as you know, communication is the life and blood of every organization. When you talk about a developing organization, flourishing in all aspects, communication flows in every sphere. But if you divide communication in a broad spectrum, it will be in verbal communication, non-verbal communication. But we'll be focusing on the concept of non-verbal communication. What is normally non-verbal communication? That's called body language. What is body language? Communication with the use of gesture, postures, time, space, and personal appearance. So I divided non-verbal communication into four different aspects. One is kinesis, haptics, chronemics, and apulsis. So let's concentrate on kinesis. What is kinesis? Kinesis is the communication or study of communication through body language, through gesture, postures. What is gestures? The movements. How do you move? Many times when you speak in verbal communication, it is the words, the sentences, the idioms and phrases that communicate. But what need to be compensated when you communicate is called a body language. The use of your hands, the use of your shoulders, the use of your head and eyes. That's the most important factor. Now, shrugging of the shoulders, upward direction indicates I don't care, I don't mind. When you stand on your seat, if you're leaning against a chair and your shoulder is hunched down, it's loosely held, that means I'm tired or I'm not interested. But an upright shoulder, that indicates that I'm attentive and I'm listening to you. Use of the hands during the process of communication is very effective. Now, we advise candidates not to put their hands in the pocket, as it indicates, or we advise them not to cross their hands like this because it indicates a defensive attitude. So your hands should loose heavily and they should gesture automatically. Now, haptics is communication through personal space. Now, what is personal space? Once again, it is culture specific. In the Middle Eastern cultures, people prefer to sit close to each other, as it indicates closeness. But if you look this haptics from a Western perspective, in Western culture, people normally prefer to maintain a distance of 1 meter normally when they sit and talk to each other, because particularly Americans respects themselves as individuals. They never call themselves as a part of a race. Then comes chronemics. Chronemics is a beautiful concept. This is communication through time, or the study of communication through time. Sounds different. How could you communicate through time? Now, try to understand a concept called a time zone. Each and every individual in the world has got a time zone. Remember, every day you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And one day you get up at 6:30 and you say, I'm late. And somebody who gets up at 5:30 every day and he gets up at 6 o'clock. For him, the same time zone has got a different concepts. Another thing, if you have an appointment with somebody at 9:30 and you are reaching to the appointment around 9:40, then person believes that you are casual, you are not at all serious for your meeting. So much before you interact with the person physically, you create an impression as being a careless person. But if your appointment is at 9:30 and you are meeting somebody as 9:25, so much before you meet him personally or physically, you create an impression that this is a very serious person, he's interested, he's punctual and all. So this is what we call communication through time, the study of communication through time. Now, the last one is apulsis. That is called eye contact, communication through the eye. So if you see, when human beings communicate, the eyes are supposed to be the most communicative part in a human body. Eyes speak a lot of things. People could identify a lot of things from us through our eyes, whether we are sad, we are happy, we are aggressive, we are disgusted. Now, frowning of the eyebrows and widening of the eye indicates sometimes displeasure or anger. Widening of the eyes indicates sometimes like surprise, and opening of the eye slightly wide open when communicate indicates the best communicative posture. Now, closing of the eyelids and frequently flicking down the eyelids indicates that I'm nervous, I'm not interested in the communicative process. Now, why non-verbal communication is important? If you see the Mehrabian's model, if you take 100% as communication, 70% of the messages are communicated non-verbally and 30% messages are communicated verbally. Now, the question comes, why non-verbal communication is so important? Now, when you compare oral communication and written communication, what makes oral communication is the most prominent mode of communication because the inclusion of body language or non-verbal communication. Instant feedback can be anticipated. As you see the person speaking to you, you can feel his body language. How do you react when you talk to him? How he responds when he communicates to him. Now, the most important factor is called voluntary body language and non-voluntary body language. Now, some body languages are spontaneous. If you see a snake passing, there is automatically a change in the body. So that's what you call non-voluntary body language. And what is a voluntary body language? It's when you see somebody shouting at you. It depends on you. You can create aggression in your body language, or you can remain calm and quiet without telling that. But most probably, body language is culture specific. In different cultures and different parts of the world, it has its different entity. For example, I'm showing you a thumb. In the Middle Eastern cultures like Korea, Japan, India, this indicates all the best or best of luck. But in some of the cultures, it is anticipated as I defy you. Right? Body language. And another thing in eye contact, it's quite culture specific. Like the Japanese, when they communicate to somebody, who is superior to them, they will prefer looking down. Because looking directly into the eyes of somebody in Japan is considered to be aggressive. But the reverse seems to be true in the American culture. The Americans believe that if you are talking to somebody, you need to look at him directly, at his eyes directly. If you don't do that, they believe you are unreliable and shifty. Now, what cross-cultural communication happens? Now, imagine a Japanese and an American speaking to each other. As a part of the nature, the Japanese prefers to look downwards, and the American looks directly into the eyes of the Japanese. And the Japanese thinks the American to be aggressive and rude, and on the other hand, the American believes that the Japanese is unreliable and shifty. So body language cannot be inculcated and cannot be taught, but partly body language can be taught to somebody if he or she does it knowingly over a part of time, how to react. And basic reasons of non-verbal communication is to create a positive body language. Because when a positive body language will communicate a positive message.